The age of the superhero began in 1938 with the publication of Action Comics #1 featuring the debut of Superman. He was such a huge hit that a series called Detective Comics broke format to introduce another take on the superhero formula in issue 27 with the introduction of Batman. Throughout the 40s and 50s, in live action and animation, Superman featured in projects that pushed boundaries and evolved the art of cinema. On the other end of the quality spectrum, the Batman serials were hastily produced, low-budget productions with little respect for the source material. The Superman films of the 40s were so good and so popular that they naturally evolved into The Adventures of Superman, one of the biggest hits of the early days of television. The influence of the Batman serials on later Batman television projects was less direct. In the mid-60s, screenings of the Batman serials were a popular attraction at the Playboy Club in Chicago. A TV executive attended a party at the club, saw how people enjoyed the serials for their camp and unintentional comedy, and had the idea for a pop art-styled reboot of the serials as a TV show. Starting in January 1966, Batman was a smash hit on TV in full color twice a week in primetime, with a companion feature film hitting theaters during the summer between the first and second seasons. Original series writer Lorenzo Semple Jr. expertly balanced the series' humor and action, but after he left the show in season 2, the series took on an increasingly juvenile and campy tone. Ratings suffered, and the show was canceled after season 3. Wonder Woman ran for 3 seasons on primetime in the mid-70s, but concerns over violence on television meant that the producers took a more family-friendly approach to the action and tone, despite being set in the middle of World War II and the villains mostly being Nazis. TV stations airing reruns of the 60s Batman series programmed it as a weekday afternoon kids show, along with the 50s Superman and the animated Super Friends. Superheroes and comic books generally were thought of, if they were thought of at all, as disposable entertainment for children. Around this time, a new Superman movie was in development with the campy approach of the Batman TV series. But director Richard Donner thought that Superman should be considered the quintessential American icon. After several false starts and a long process of rewrites, Superman the movie went into production as a sweeping epic and was released in 1978. Its follow-up, Superman 2, was hailed as one of the greatest sequels of all time, but the third installment, owing to producer interference, missed the mark. The fourth, a cash grab by a bankrupt studio, is universally derided as one of the worst movies ever made. While the Superman franchise played out in the movies during the 70s and 80s, development was underway for a new take on Batman for the silver screen. The original idea was to do a comedy starring Bill Murray in the title role, but after the graphic novel The Dark Knight Returns became a runaway success, plans were altered to present Batman on screen as the dark and brooding character from the early comic books. Batman opened in June 1989 to become not only a hit movie, but the biggest pop culture sensation since Star Wars. For the sequel, director Tim Burton wanted to make a dark character study, but the studio wanted an action fantasy that would sell toys and Happy Meals. Batman Returns compromised and succeeded as neither in 1992. The third movie, Batman Forever in 95, tried to be more family-friendly. By the fourth, Batman and Robin in 97, toy companies were involved in the design and pre-production stages, and the movie overtly emulated the style of the 60s TV show. It was savaged by critics and fans alike, and plans for a fifth movie were quickly scrapped. A new Superman film, Superman Lives, was announced for a summer 1998 release with Nicolas Cage cast in the title role, Tim Burton set to direct, and Michael Keaton resuming the role of Batman in a cameo appearance. But after a series of big-budget flops, a cash-strapped Warner Brothers decided that Will Smith was a more bankable star, and Superman Lives was scrapped in favor of Wild Wild West. Stuck in development hell, the next Batman movie would have adapted the graphic novel Batman Year One. After the success of the Spider-Man movie in 2002, Warner Brothers revisited the idea of superheroes on screen, and in 2005, Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins hit theaters to the delight of fans and critics. The following year, Superman Returns was not as successful as the studio had hoped, and plans for a Joss Whedon-helmed Wonder Woman movie were canceled when the director and the studio couldn't agree on a story or who to cast. At the same time as the next Batman movie was being made, Warner Brothers was developing a Justice League movie. A cast was announced and production began, but the 2008 Writers Guild strike delayed production and the movie was ultimately canceled. The success of The Dark Knight that summer encouraged the studio to focus on single-character movies. Green Lantern was released in 2011 but was a flop both critically and commercially. The Dark Knight Rises, the final film in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, was a hit in 2012, and Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, arrived in 2013. Hot on the heels of that release, Warner Brothers announced that every superhero fan's dream would come true in 2016 when we will see Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice hit theaters and officially launch the DC Cinematic Universe. So there's my take on the DC Cinematic Universe history. I bit off way more than I could chew with this one. It ended up being a way bigger project than I meant, but I'm so glad you watched it, and I hope you learned something. Let me know if you did. Also check out my history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and check out my comic books, which you can read for free on my website. Thanks for the love the last 2 weeks on the 2 new superhero videos, Spidey and Deadpool. I'm very thankful. 2 of the biggest weeks on the channel in a long time. Thank you so much. Shoutouts here for Cash and Navarrete, Glorious Turtle Chan, Jody Wiggins, and Guaranteed Phobia. New subscriber alert, Luke Gibson, The Jav Man, Caleb Dean, and Alexis Morris. Are you a new subscriber? Let me know in the comments. I'll shout you out. Also, check it out because we come back every single week with a new video. Every Friday I upload something new. Thank you so much. Subscribe so you don't miss nothing. And until next week, hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, like the show on Facebook, and follow my story on Snapchat. And we'll see you right back here next Friday.